at this point, I do believe it is safe to declare that Debian Linux has gone full woke. Full off their rocker, super discriminatory, crazy woke. We have so many things, so many news items over the last few months and few years that it just can't be ignored anymore. Discrimination against white males and Asian males, covering for registered sex offenders, censoring people who have the audacity of trying to warn people about registered sex offenders working on the Debian project and going to Debian events. The project officially virtue signaling about leaving X and being anti-Elon and all sorts of other crazy things. And now they've gone ahead and started a campaign for removing offensive, air quotes offensive, packages from the Debian Linux, from the upcoming Debian Linux 13 release, and all while supporting and basically giving the big thumbs up to anti-white racism and anti-straight or anti-cis bigotry. It's crazy. The number of things that the Debian Linux project is doing, in most cases officially, that are just psychotically woke is off the charts. And I hate to go down that road because I have been a user of Debian Linux for years, whether it's Debian itself or derivatives of Debian. I mean, it's very rare over the last 20 years that I haven't had at least one machine or one server or laptop somewhere running a version of Debian. So this kind of sucks. I'm going to read through a couple of these things real quick so you guys can judge for yourself. If you think I'm completely mental and I am jumping to conclusions, you're more than welcome to think that, but I'm going to show you what I think here. I'm going to show you the various news items that I feel like led to this. The most recent one, I'm just going to read what I posted here over on X. The Debian Linux team is removing offensive quotes for the Fortune application. You guys all know the Fortune application. It's been around the Unix world for forever. You know, you type Fortune and you get a fortune. It just spits out a random quote from a random text quote file. And one of those files is deemed the offensive quote package, right? So if you install the Fortune application and the packages that are for offensive quotes, offensive Fortune, offensive little phrases, your jokes, and then when you run Fortune, you pass in the -o parameter, meaning I want to see the offensive quotes from it. That's what we're talking about here. It's been around forever. Now, most of the quotes and jokes and whatnot in the Fortune files, in the offensive Fortune files, are not that offensive. Some of them are offensive, but most of them aren't that offensive. Some of them are funny, some of them are not. It's kind of all over the map. But I wanted to make sure you had the the background on this here. Okay. Now, so Debian Linux team is removing the offensive quotes packages for the Fortune application, specifically for the Spanish and Italian translations of the quote packages for the next release of Debian. Some of the package maintainers have noted that these packages have existed inside of Debian, specifically these offensive packages, since 2003, so for the last 22 years, nearly a quarter of a century, with zero complaints from users, not one. Maintainers also noted that it is impossible to see those offensive quotes accidentally, as it requires, 1, installing a non-default package that you have to go looking for, and 2, you have to issue a specific command line flag after that to even see the offensive quote. So you have to really try to see the offensive quotes, right? Just the same, the Debian team has determined that it is a serious issue. They literally marked it as serious, and that Debian 13 cannot ship, which it is scheduled to ship on August 9th, which is, as at the time of me recording this, less than 5 days from now. that it cannot ship Debian 13 until those offensive quote packages are removed. I'm just going to read you a couple of quotes here because this is some of it is just hilarious here. So there's 2 bugs in the Debian bug reports. Offensive fortunes have been removed in English. This package has no place in Debian. Hi. With my release team hat on, I'm reinforcing the decision of the community team that the offensive flavors of fortune packages don't have a place in Debian anymore. Please drop fortune star off binary packages. Basically saying, this was from Paul Gevers from the Debian community team and Debian release team, saying that it doesn't have a place in Debian anymore. And they really held to that. They are saying flat out, there is no way that they can release Debian 13 with these offensive packages in it. And I should be clear, it's not installed by default, right? You have to really work for it. Now, one of the maintainer of, I think this is the Spanish package, no, the Italian offensive or off-color package that has the text file in it, had this to say. Let me start by saying that Fortune IT off, the offensive Italian package, has existed since 2003, and there have been 0 complaints from offended people in these 22 years. It's not pulled as a dependency by anything, and even if installed, Fortune package won't display that content unless the -O switch is passed, like I was mentioning. I think it's fair to assume that nobody has ever seen offensive content from that package by mistake. And he goes on to say that there's really no reason to remove this. I mean, it's kind of a historical quirk. I mean, is it an important part of the operating system? No, it's absolutely not, but it's been around for years. I mean, Fortune has existed for friggin' ever, and it's a historically interesting package to have around. One of the other Debian project contributors responded to that. Clearly not a fan of the offensive package. Quote, If it is the case, the removal requests get my full support. Sexism, racism, and such are not, never were, and cannot be funny, not even in a package explicitly labeled as such. Okay, now just to point this out, sexism, racism, and such can actually often be funny. There are so many comedians. I'm not gonna start spouting off like some of my favorite, say, Norm Macdonald quotes and comments right now. But if you go look through some of the greatest Norm Macdonald bits, some of them are pretty racist and pretty sexist. In a funny way. They're funny. Yes, they can absolutely be funny. So whoever wrote this is just really stupid. This guy goes on to say, I have no problem with offensive humor, but oppressive, quote, jokes are something else that should not be tolerated in the universal operating system, meaning Debian. Making fun of cis-het white males can be offensive, and it's okay, while making fun of people already suffering from discrimination is oppressive, and that's not okay. Okay. You hear what they just said there? Making fun of cis-het white males, so meaning straight white men, can be offensive, and it's okay. So the stance from Debian appears to be it is absolutely okay to say something, to make an offensive, quote, joke against straight white males. But it is not okay to make an offensive joke against anyone else. Woo, fancy. It's crazy. It's crazy that is the stance, and it does seem to be going forward. They do seem to be removing these packages from Debian. And if this was a lone isolated incident, this would just be a funny, quirky news report. Like I would be like, hey, do you hear about Debian getting rid of the offensive text file package? Okay, whatever. It's funny. It's weird that they're doing it, but okay. All right, fine. You know what? They can make that decision. The thing is, this is a pattern. It's a pattern of continuous discrimination against specific groups and support of other groups. Specifically, I want to call out this. You may remember, what date was this? This was back on July 7th, so last month. You may remember the case of Jeremy Beecha. Well, Jeremy Beecha and Marco Deitri got together, two Debian developers, and began defacing the wiki of the Ex Libre project, right? The fork of Xorg. And they began defacing the Ex Libre project wiki, these two Debian developers, by specifically calling them Nazis and saying that it's a Nazi bar. And as far as I could tell, trying to incite violence against anyone who would dare have the audacity to fork an open source X11 server. It's very, very bizarre that they did this, but they did it, right? And they did it for very strange, angry political reasons. They defamed people. It's crazy. It's crazy that they did this. Debian never spoke out against it. Not ever. They took no action whatsoever to stop it, to reprimand their contributors for being a part of that. One of those contributors, one of those Debian contributors, his name was Jeremy Beecha. Jeremy Beecha, it turns out, is a registered sex offender who had committed thousands of assaults of little girls, little children, little kids, like as young as 9. Thousands of assaults. Was convicted. I don't know if he was. I don't remember how many he was convicted of, but he was convicted of quite a few of them. And he's a registered sex offender. Debian, the Debian project, to my knowledge, and I've been looking and asking them about this, has never, to this day, to this moment, warned their developers, their contributors, or their users that a registered sex offender who is documented and admitted to having performed thousands of assaults on little kids was amongst them. From a pure safety standpoint, that is appalling that Debian would protect him for that. Appalling. In fact, let me see this here. This last July, Jeremy Beecha was scheduled to speak, and I believe he did speak, as far as I know, at the annual Debian conference, DebConf 25, where Debian, the DebConf organizers, were specifically talking about having kids at the conference, where they were specifically talking about childcare and daycare and bringing kids and families being there. They never informed people that there was going to be a registered sex offender who had thousands of assaults under his belt, that he was going to be there specifically representing as a representative of both Debian and GNOME. Never once did they do that. In fact, do I have this here? Yes, I have this here. In fact, multiple portions of the Debian community began actively suppressing, silencing, and censoring anyone who brought up the topic. People who went on to the Debian subreddit, which is heavily moderated by members of the Debian community and people who have longtime contributors to Debian. People ask, why is Debian allowing a serial abuser of children to speak at DebConf? And it gets deleted. It gets removed. It gets silenced. So not only was Debian not informing people, they were taking active, proactive steps to make sure that their users, their contributors, their conference attendees did not know that they were in danger. That is, they spent effort to hide that, to cover for a registered sex offender, to support and help hide a registered sex offender. Horrific. And it goes on and on and on. Debian was this back in January Debian decided to do one heck of a big old virtue signaling push. They decided to leave X, right, the new Twitter, right, citing things like, oh, Elon Musk and how problematic Elon Musk is, and talking about diversity and fake news and gender issues. And they posted their final post on X. The Debian publicity team will no longer post on X/Twitter. We took this decision since we feel X doesn't reflect Debian shared values as stated in our social contract, code of conduct, and diversity statement. X evolved into a place where people we care about don't feel safe. I mean, just a big, giant pile of virtue signaling. It's just one thing after another. What else we got? What else we got here? Oh, yeah. So, also, when was this story? Back in October, I reported on this, but this has been an ongoing thing, actually, for a few years now. Debian has been working with an organization called Outreachy. Outreachy, for those of you who aren't aware, is an organization that helps to provide paid short-term, like 3-month-long internships for people to work in open source, on open source projects, at open source companies, and the like, right? So they do low-paid but paid internships, which in and of itself is a good thing. I like the idea of paid internships working on open source and free software. Great. However, Outreachy specifically calls out that everyone on Earth is welcome to be part of Outreachy's outreach programs, except for straight white men and straight Asian men. And Debian went along with this in a very big way, including having lists of demographics on their website that they were encouraging to apply for internships at Debian. And those demographics included everybody on Earth, except straight white men and straight Asian men. You need not apply. You are not welcome. See, it's an overarching pattern. We're seeing it time and time again. And then of course, right, just coming out right now, they made the statement, sexism, racism, and such are not, never were, and cannot be funny. Making fun of cis, het, white males can be offensive, and it's okay. Well, making fun of other people, is not okay. There's no such thing in our current society, they say, as anti-white racism or anti-male sexism. That's what their direct statement. That's messed up. I want to kind of summarize and put this out there as a little food for thought for all of you. A key Debian contributor is a registered sex offender convicted of thousands of assaults of small children. Debian has not warned their contributors or users of this fact. They also allowed the sex offender to speak at conferences with women and children without warning attendees. The Debian team says making fun of cis white people is okay, but if anyone else is made fun of, that is so bad that it is a showstopper bug that will hold up a major Debian release. And that's crazy to me. That's absolutely crazy. Now, all throughout every single one of these stories, I've reached out to Debian repeatedly. No response. None whatsoever. Not a single comment. Nothing. Nothing at all. They have, however, repeatedly censored and silenced anyone who asks questions about these topics, these news stories. Repeatedly censoring them. So at this point, I think it's fair to say, has Debian gone full woke? Of course they have. Wildly, crazily, off the chartsily, full woke. Luckily, there are other Linux distributions out there that have not. A Debian fork known as Devuan has not. Open Mandriva has not. There are Linux distributions out there that are not full woke, and that is worth noting. But oh my gosh. Now, again, if Debian thinks I'm off base on any of this, reach out to me. Do the responsible thing and actually have a open discussion with a journalist covering what you are doing, Debian. I don't think they will, because they haven't for years. They just stay totally silent about all this stuff. But my guess is if people bring up any of this to them, that you'll get censored. If you post this on their subreddits or talk about them on social media in certain ways, they'll censor you any way they can. They absolutely will. I'm 99% sure that they will, based on their past track record. I would like to, however, be proven wrong. I would love, absolutely just adore being proven wrong on this. I would love to see Debian contact me. I would love to see Debian make a statement about some of these things, about their extreme levels of racism and sexism and bigotry that they've put forth, about their strange virtue signaling, which is just bizarre, their covering for registered sex offenders. I would love to hear from them on a wide variety of these topics. So if I'm wrong on anything, or I just am failing to understand your viewpoint, Debian, get a hold of me. If you send me comments, I will publish them in full, because I'm not here to hide anything that you're saying. I want people to know exactly what Debian thinks. You want to come on my show? Well, I'll interview you. We'll talk about it. I'm a nice guy. I won't bite. Anyway, thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing this coverage to occur, because heaven knows the other tech journalists won't do it. So thank you. Go to lunduke.com and click on some links there. Lots and lots of crazy good links. You can download the MP4 files. There's a RSS audio podcast feed, which is where most of you get the shows. You can also watch on Locals and Rumble, on X, on Facebook, on Patreon, even on YouTube. I'm everywhere, man. The Lunduke Journal is everywhere. It's fantastic. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.